Sweat and Tears, written by TechniGoth. There is a fresh, blank page sitting in front of me, and as I stare at it, it seems to stare back. It's always so hard to get started, I think. I just wish I could get over the hump without climbing the hill. I feel like Sisyphus every time I've ever gotten to the peak. I roll back down to the start. I put my pen to the pristine white page and pause, thinking, agonizing over what sort of approach I will take this time. Will I be too eager? Will I lose interest? Is it going to be long enough, short enough, authentic, or intelligent enough? Black ink has begun to pool where the pen's tip is pressed to the paper, and I watch it soak in as any answers elude me. Still, there is no way to break the block other than to just start writing, directionless or otherwise. There is a girl sitting in a room, and with that phrase, the floodgates have opened. She is wearing a simple dress, blue with a floral print. The room around her is nondescript and familiar. There is no door or window. There is a bed frame and a mattress, a side table, a chair, which the girl occupies. Behind this chair, there is a simple floor-length mirror affixated to the wall. Above it, a clock ticking quietly. Good start. She sits gingerly on the edge of the chair, as though ready to sprint into action at the drop of a hat. Ripe with anxious energy, she keeps her back to the mirror behind her, as though it might jump up and bite her if she looks at it. Her foot is tapping, and she shifts and shuffles lightly in place. It seems like she's waiting for something. In a confined space with no entrance or exit, it is unclear what she is waiting for. She twists the hem of her skirt around and around her finger, trying to place how she got it when she last changed. To her, the dress feels old and familiar, and yet somehow untouched. She adjusts it, smooths the fabric, and then changes her mind and adjusts it again. I'm finally gaining a bit of momentum. This feels good. The piece has direction. It feels like it's moving at a good pace, and the ink is beginning to shine a deep brown. Right on track. She looks around at the furniture in front of her, never daring to so much as glance towards the mirror. While the room is static and quiet, her distress continues to mount. All at once, she springs up from her perch and crosses the bed, hungry eyes hunting the area for something. She feels like she already checked, but she just has to go look again. The bed is bare, stripped to the mattress. She pulls open the drawer of the side table and finds nothing. She knows this room must have been well furnished once, and yet has apparently been slowly stripped down to its current barren state. Nonetheless, she combs the room once more. The clock ticks on and she searches with her back still to the mirror. The hour hand inches towards 6, crawling closer. Closer, closer. The clock strikes 6. I take a moment to crack my knuckles and shake my head, but only for a moment. The ink is getting fresher and fresher, and I don't want to waste a drop. A hollow, assertive tone sounds off. She freezes, halting her search. Goosebumps rise on her skin, every hair standing on end. Her breath becomes shallow and rapid, and she will spend this next hour slightly lightheaded. Is something happening? An unseen threat activating some deep-rooted fight or flight response? Or has she done this to herself, imagining danger? The clock continues to chime, unconcerned with the panic it has caused. She sits back down on her chair, foot tapping wildly, head on the hands as she tries and fails to steady her breathing. The clock ticks cheerfully away, and from her point of view, seems to slip all too quickly towards 7. Anxiety has overwhelmed her, and it is all she can do not to faint. She stands again and crosses the mattress, sitting gingerly on the edge, craning her torso, twisting away from the mirror as fully as possible. She ponders her situation, combing through her memories at the start, trying to recall what landed her in this strange experience, racking her imagination for an end, trying to think of how she could escape that ticking clock, as well as the mirror. Nothing comes to her, and eventually she allows herself to lay down. The anxiety has drained her energy, and in spite of the unanswered questions circling her head, she is able to doze off. The clock strikes 7. She awakes with a start and is immediately racked with pain and discomfort. Her unfortunate breathing and the physical toll of this new hour have rendered her dizzy and confused, struggling to think clearly. Her arms ache, sore with every little motion, and tender to the touch. Her legs have fared no better, raw skin stinging against the cool air of the room. She feels like she sat on a landmine or a dagger, and sitting up agitates her lower abdomen terribly. It's like something is trying to claw its way out of her core, and although the pain is placed low and limited in reach, it is still uniquely impossible to ignore. She cries out and discovers that her throat was not left out of the destruction. It feels tight, raw, and she realizes it must have nearly swollen shut. She can still breathe, but just barely. It is clear that the danger she sensed was very real, although unclear if she could have done anything about it. She rolls out of bed and falls to the floor on her hands and knees. The impact hurts, everything does in this hour. After a moment, she comes up to a sitting position, facing away from the mirror, my pale hand dragging across line after line of copper-colored text, shining bright and wet against the light. She finally turns and glares at the mirror from the corner of her eye, her reflection out of sight. Its cold sheen seems to heighten her discomfort as she groans and shifts in response to her new injuries. Her mind is foggy, thanks to the toll the clock is taking on her, and as she moves, a distinct irritation begins cutting through the haze. How dare the mirror stare at her like this? How dare it confront her? What sort of cocky, domineering piece of furniture is this to threaten her so? She stands slowly, swaying slightly. She'll show this thing, this ridiculous thing. The clock ticks closer and closer to 8 as she approaches the mirror, drawing her dress up over her body. She shakes it out and winds up to cover the monstrous thing with her own clothing once and for all. As she crosses to confront this beast, her reflection draws into her sight for the first time, and it stops her dead in her tracks. I can feel myself losing the thread slightly. Truthfully, I'm having a little trouble thinking clearly as well. But my work, it shines so brightly, red ink glittering in the overhead lights. She stares, wide-eyed and frozen, at the mottled purple and white figure facing her. At this angle, only half her body is visible, mostly her arm and the part of her leg. But that is more than enough. Crescent-shaped bruises pepper her arm, and as she watches, teeth marks appear and dig deeper and deeper into her flesh. Glancing down, she can see that the hour has left identical injuries on each arm, her legs matching each other as well. She looks back to the mirror. Long, thin scratches trace from the bottom of her foot, wrapping around her ankle and carving a path all the way up, traversing her shin, crossing her knee, dragging up her thigh to connect that. She looks away, shifting out of sight of her own reflection. But not before she glimpsed a long, thick mark encircling her neck, which she is certain is growing darker by the moment. She shoves her head back into her dress and once again puts her back to the mirror, searching desperately for a way to hide it. Her bleary eyes comb the barren room once again, as the grip of her neck tightens and the bite marks begin to draw blood. She is running out of time. She is running out of ideas. The clock is about to strike 8. I'm so dizzy now, and my pen is gushing faster than I can keep up with it. My vision blurs and I can feel the center of balance shifting far too much for comfort. But I simply can't stop now, not so close to the end, just a little further. She's still searching as the blood begins to drip down her arms onto the floor, identical tracks tracing down her legs. Finally, desperate, exhausted, she lunges towards the bed and rips the mattress off. Although she is barely able to stand herself, she somehow manages to drag the unwieldy thing across the room. With the last dregs of her energy, she stands the mattress up against the mirror, leaving smeared red handprints behind it. She sinks triumphant and crawls back to her chair to rest. As she climbs onto the seat, bruised and bleeding steadily, the clock strikes 8. I try to continue, but my limp hand drops the pen, which bounces off my desk and onto the ground and smudges the start of the next line. God damn it. God damn it. I was so close. I slump out of my own chair and crawl my way to my own bed, crossing the cluttered, cozy room in the least efficient way possible. I rise briefly, only to flop face down onto the mattress and immediately fall into a deep sleep. I wake up eventually, my head kind of hurts and I'm so thirsty. I sit up and immediately reach for the water on the bedside table, downing the entire thing in one go. I race for the closest tap and repeat the process, so desperate to quench my thirst that the water spills out of the corners of my mouth and onto my chest. Nothing that won't dry. Most things dry eventually, in my experience. Finally satisfied and toting another full glass of water, I wander back to the center of my room. Setting the glass down on the side of my table, I cross my arms and take in the work on my desk. Once again, sheets filled with dark ink give way to bright red, drip-covered passages written in blood, accumulating in about half a page, completely saturated with the drying blood. I sigh and grab some cleaning supplies. A stained old rag and some peroxide will take care of this. I got so much closer to the end this time. Maybe I just need a few more rounds. Each try the pen does bleed less and less. Man, the first draft was really a huge mess. I still have stains on the floor from it, but I'm certain that each time I try I get further and the pen bleeds less. I mop up the last of the quote-unquote ink and settle into my chair, already fired up for another attempt. There is a girl sitting in a room. She is wearing a simple dress, blue with a floral print. The room around her is nondescript and familiar. There is no door or window. There is an empty bed frame, a side table, and a chair which the girl occupies. Behind the chair, there is a simple floor-length mirror affixed to the wall. Above it, a clock ticking quietly. I am bleeding less too, you know.